And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Today we'll be talking solar flares, the explosion of Mount Etna, Vladimir Putin appears in the Daily Space Weather, and more information about UFOs. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho. Patron saint of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. First thing we're doing is looking at the sun in colorized magnetogram. Sunspot 2797 produced a C-class solar flare yesterday afternoon. We'll talk all about it. And we've got a significant distance between the leading and trailing umbrae there, which is a slightly enhanced chance of additional solar flares. No huge expectation of coronal mass ejections from me. There is a coronal hole leading that also. We'll show you in a moment. First, more data, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, now at 78 solar flux units. There's the one-year chart of the radio flux, and this 10.7 centimeter radio flux is the radio output in 2800 megahertz of the outer solar corona. Here's sunspot number progression over the last cycle, actually, cycle 24. Welcome to cycle 25. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. And there's radio flux, and you can see how proportional that is indeed to sunspot number. Next, we'll take a quick look at the fields here. Here's the latest image. And you can see, as I said, we've got significant distance between the leading umbra here and the trailing umbra. And it pretty much all depends on how much plasma is suspended in between them. We'll show you some close-ups after we show you a full disk view in 171 angstroms. And here's an extreme close-up of sunspot 2797 in that same wavelength, one of the ionized spectral states of iron. And allow me to vanish. And we'll show you some more close-ups at the end. Here's 304 angstroms in the full disk. And you can see that coronal hole leading sunspot 2797. And here's a close-up in that wavelength. We'll save the rest of the close-ups of sunspot 2797 for the end of the video and go through a whole bunch of other data. Today's Smash Lights segment will be a live video produced after this one. So if you're viewing the live premiere today, thanks for tuning into that. And we'll be making a Smash Lights segment after this where we talk about whatever we want. So I'll talk about Vladimir Putin all I like or whatever else on today's Smash Lights segment. So make sure you tune into that. It'll be a YouTube live stream exclusive. By the way, we are all over social media. Check out Gab, gab.com/smAsho. We're also on Twitter, where we've been losing followers over the past couple of weeks. No real surprise there. And also check out our own websites, smashomash.org, smashomash.com. You can find our social media there, as well as links to our forum and our stores. Today's featured product is the Are You Safe Yet mask. Are you safe yet? Are you a complete COVIDiot? Do you have the ridiculous notion in mind that masks are protecting you or anybody else? Well, if so, perhaps pick up one of our Are You Safe Yet masks. Or would you like to just go create a dialogue in public with people who are wondering if they're safe yet? Again, you can link to that at smashomash.com and smashomash.org. If you're viewing on YouTube, press like and subscribe, as the video can't continue until you do so. Here at the Smash News Network, we need more subscribers as an incentive to continue to make the videos free and publicly visible. Thanks to everybody viewing on YouTube. We also are on BitChute. There's exclusive content there. There's exclusive content on all of our websites. And let's do a cosmology segment, as there are a bunch of stories hitting the wire today. First of all, the Hubble constant, which is the measurement of the expansion of the galaxies away from each other, one of the more important aspects of cosmology, has been recalculated here based on the behavior of neutron stars. You can find an article about this this one's on SciTech Daily. It's probably all over the Science and Astronomy wire today. The combined observations of neutron stars. Now, I prefer to refer to those as massive radio sources. I won't get deep into it. Perhaps have a read of the article. New calculation of the Hubble constant. And I don't know why I'm on technology news. I did not intend to open that tab. Now let's talk about plumelets. And if you were a patron, you would have already known about the plumelets. And allow me to get back off the screen again. I would note all the structures down in these plumelets. They almost look like spirals, as if they're, I don't know, Birkeland currents. As the entire universe is not electric, but small aspects of it are. When you get to a point source close to a strong magnet like the sun, indeed you may see electrical things. Plumelets. Another thing featured on a SciTech Daily article today. The Parker Solar Probe is getting some insight into how this can be a thing. So perhaps have a read on that as well. Giving us insight into solar magnetism, as the ionized dust and gas known as plasma, superheated by the surface of the sun, gives us insight into the sun's magnetic fields. I'm just letting the article scroll here. Plumelets. Again, if you were a patron, you would already know about it. And many of you may already know that the Parker Solar Probe has measured reversals in the outgoing solar wind, odd, unexpected reversals in the solar wind. So that's something to probably understand also if you didn't already know. And if you're a regular viewer, you probably did already know. Speaking of patrons, thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content, please consider funding us via patreon.com/smashomash. Increase the probability that these videos will continue to be free and publicly visible. Help to fund the world's leading solar forecaster, us, at patreon.com/smashomash. And today we have no reason to roll any dice. We're going to be talking about galaxy I don't remember what galaxy. UGC 3697. As some galaxies are vastly different than other galaxies, obviously. So let's bring this up on Aladdin Light here. And you can see this is an edge-on galactic disk. And you can see how warped it is. It's shaped like a potato chip. Galaxy UGC 3697. The Universal Galactic Catalog 3697. I'll put it up in a different wavelength here as well. Here it is on the 2-mass in infrared light. And the warp isn't quite as obvious. Let's go back to another optical wavelength here. And there's a good view of that warped shape. Well, many believe that the Milky Way galaxy is indeed warped as well, although it is hard to tell since we are within the Milky Way galaxy. And by the way, this has nothing to do with a galactic current sheet detectable at our solar system, but here is a an image. It's a GIF animation based on the 2-mass infrared data that we were just looking at for that other galaxy. An indication that perhaps there is some bit of a warp to the Milky Way's galactic disk. I was aware of it already, but I figured I would cover the article anyway. This one is on phys.org's Astronomy and Space section. Let's talk about Zooniverse. Zooniverse.org is the largest citizen science project in the world. And one of the things you can do is the Zwicky Chemical Factory, as the chemical composition of stuff in cosmology is kind of important. And one of the ways that you can help with citizen science is by going to the Zwicky Chemical Factory and matching up spectral lines. Yes. So for example, this one here, you want to pick which one of these templates matches up most closely with the observed data. And this might hurt your brain. It certainly hurts mine. And it's either that one or that one. And we're going to go with that one. Number 1 is the closest match. And this helps with us to determine the chemical composition of various things. Speaking of chemical composition, how about NGC 7027, otherwise known as the Jewel Bug Nebula? Here's an example of what we're looking at here, a bunch of ionized sulfur shown in green and ionized iron mixed in with all that hydrogen gas, as it's still primarily hydrogen, but that's got a bunch of absorption spectral lines for sulfur and for iron. And you can see that great map there showing you the iron appears to be closer to the star and the sulfur appears to be farther out, perhaps giving us insight into nuclear fusion having happened at the center portion of that nebula, perhaps. And that's NGC 7027. And is it possible that all stars are able to produce the heavy elements without having to do anything special? Is that what's going on? Or is a supernoval explosion required where a nuclear dynamo in the center of a star is producing heavy elements in shells and then eventually that explodes and that's where all the heavy elements come from? Is that even necessary, folks? Or are heavy elements able to be produced by all stars basically on the surface? An important question in astronomy. And let's talk Vladimir Putin as he appears in this document. This is on theblackvault.com. This is document C05517-859. It's toward the bottom of the list. And this one actually refers to Vladimir Putin, believe it or not. So it does refer to UFOs. I'll get to it in a minute. But first, it's talking about how President Vladimir Putin has completed his visit to Mongolia. Also, coincidentally, perhaps, referring to the murder of journalist Dmitry Koledov in 1994. Gee, I wonder if that's related in any way. No, I wouldn't be accusing anybody like Vladimir Putin of anything like that. Absolutely not. As I value not being poisoned by polonium-210. So getting to UFOs, there actually is a report here. Russian border guards have seen a UFO in Dagestan last night. When that was, I have no idea. The document does not appear to be dated. Leave us a comment if you're able to figure out from all these codes what the date actually is. Although it's obviously sometime around 1994 or so. Sometime after 1994. So just a little anecdotal report there of a UFO in Dagestan. And that's today's cosmology segment. Let's get back to some more data about stuff like the real-time solar wind. And just give that a minute to load. We are streaming live to twitch.tv/smAsho. And it looks like the graph is back up in full effect here. So this is great. We've put up the 3-day graph here of the solar wind. And current conditions are just under 10 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind speed 335 kilometers a second. Pretty backgroundish levels there. Nothing too exciting to report on. The KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, currently at 3. Here's 4 hours of data from the geospace magnetosphere movies. It's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And here's me under pressure, vanishing once again. If you're wondering what's in my coffee, it's cocoa and cayenne pepper. We see a fairly consistent solar wind there. Here are magnetic perturbations on the ground level. It's another 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. And we see some perturbations here. We do have 2 North Poles right now, one over northern Canada, one over Siberia, and the South Pole has left the Antarctic continent entirely and entered the southern Indian Ocean. We don't see any proton strikes. There's a 3-day chart of proton flux measured by the GOES-16. And here you can see there was actually a solar flare approaching a C-class happening as we did show prep today. Yesterday's C-class flare happened at around 1740 Universal Time. Here's a 3-day GOES-16 magnetometer chart. And you can see the GOES-16 did some maneuvering there during the arc jet start and end moments. That means it turned on its thrusters, which created plasma, which could affect its measurement on the GOES magnetometers. Next, looking at the magnetic polarity of the current sheet here, the heliospheric current sheet. And you can see the Earth is solidly in the South Pole-oriented current sheet here shown in red. Nothing to write home about there. Keep in mind the data is about 2 hours old and can change with no warning. Here's a line of sight coronal hole plot which shows you the sun's B field in blue. And it shows you coronal holes in South Pole-oriented red, North Pole-oriented green. We are expecting a coronal hole wind stream in about a day to a day and a half. Here's a line of sight field plot which also shows you solar magnetogram and the poloidal fields, the fields emanating from the poles. And last but not least, we'll show a magnetic diagram of the solar corona, the sun's atmosphere. And I'll have another sip of my amped up coffee, chock full of cayenne pepper and cocoa powder. Next, a star chart here at in-the-sky.org. And I like to face mine to the south. Here's a chart of what's going on in the solar system. And there's where things will be in a week, approaching another full moon. As Mercury approaches the swing in between the Earth and the Sun. Next, we'll talk electrons. We see some minor charging hazards here over especially Mexico and the Central Pacific. There's the 1-year chart of the relativistic electron flux. The greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence is at low levels. And there we go with the NOAA forecast. It looks like NOAA nailed the forecast there. The yellow diamond showing the observed electron flux and the green square showing the prediction. And I'm expecting a decrease here as well. I would concur with this forecast. A bit of a dip in the electron flux as a result of a coronal hole wind stream about to show up. Again, in about 24 to 36 hours. There's a 3-day chart of the electron flux. Nothing to write home about there. Here's a diagram of the atmosphere. It shows you electromagnetic penetration. The location in kilometers to the F ionosphere layer shown there on the right, as well as the altitudes of the thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, etc. Also, the temperature variation between thermosphere solar minimum and thermosphere solar maximum, which, by the way, is almost in the cool zone now. You can find the thermosphere data at spaceweather.com. Here's a total electron content forecast. And we're looking to see GPS errors here over Antarctica. This is a measurement of the amount of electrons in between the inner Van Allen belt and your GPS satellites. And you can see some likely GPS errors in the central U.S. as well. And here's another diagram. It shows you where GPS satellites are located in between the Van Allen belts in their geosynchronous orbit. Next, looking at just one layer, we're looking at just the ionosphere here. This is about where the GOES 16 is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. And the ionosphere looking a little more normal here than it has. Here's the latest image coming in at a 10:15 Universal Time. Next, we'll go on to volcanoes. Mount Etna's been erupting, producing some Strombolian explosions. And here's some video of it. That's from the 18th. Here's another great view. Europe's tallest volcano. It's at like nearly 10,000 feet of altitude up there. Great image of that. Here's some video from Fornazzo, a small village under the volcano. Great view of some lava fountaining going on there. And let's move on to see what else has been erupting. And there you can see a long set of information about Etna. Here's some more video of it. And it's not going to go to full screen. Some time-lapse footage there. So there's a new crater in the southeast, and seismicity's been increasing. So this thing could be preparing to explode in a more epic fashion. Kluchavskoye also erupting, 20,000-foot ash plume there. Suwanose Jima, volcanic ash not identifiable in satellite imagery. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Sinabung, an eruption was observed by a ground observer. Mount Merapi now back on the list again, producing about a 1,200-meter glowing avalanche. Yowzers. Pyroclastic flows are not something to be hanging out around. Popocatépetl exploding, 20,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego, Sangay, and Revenador all exploding. Fuego producing a 15,000-foot ash plume. Sangay producing a 21,000-foot ash plume. Revenador, no altitude listed for that. Sabancaya, flight level 270 as it explodes. It's producing a 27,000-foot plume of ash. Please do not attempt a back handspring over the caldera. Seismicity has been quite low here over the past 24 hours, although we see a continuation of deep quakes like this 4.2 at Afghanistan, this 4.6 at Fiji, which is over 550 kilometers depth. No large quakes here over a 6 magnitude. And we see a continuation of a 7, 8, and 9 magnitude earthquake drought. Here's a 4.2 deep quake at Argentina. Really, it's an ongoing, lengthy lull of earthquakes. Here's another deep quake at Fiji, a 4.5 at over 530 kilometers. Nothing too extraordinary going on there, although deep quakes continue, like this 4.8 at Papua New Guinea at nearly 500 kilometers depth. Next, we're looking at the jet streams here. It's the 250 hectopascal winds at nullschool.net. There are the jet streams of the eastern world. I would note the jet stream blowing backwards east to west over the western Pacific and Indian Oceans. Here are the jet streams of the western world. And we see a doubled up jet stream over the northwestern U.S. An extreme bend happening over the central Atlantic once again. And some anomalies there on eastern South America as well. Some 180-degree bends And we actually see in the South Atlantic, actually, the jet stream, part of it blowing backwards there. It's essentially a quadrupled up jet stream there, south of the equator there in the central Atlantic Ocean. Extreme meridional jet stream flow at its finest. Check it out. Look at those extreme bends. This one here. And how about some more meteorological data? It's the GOES 16 lightning mapper. We don't see any terrestrial lightning in the U.S. right now, although there was a significant storm off the southern coast of Mexico. Let's check lightningmaps.org for a real-time lightning map. And we're seeing some terrestrial lightning. South of the Barry Goldwater Air Force Range. Hey, Puerto Penasco. There's thunder rolling in at Puerto Penasco. Oh, we did an extreme zoom out. I don't even know how I did that. It was impressive, though. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar map, and I think it's snowing over my head right now. I'll have to go out as we upload the video. Some heavy rains over central Texas. Here's what's going on with pressure cells. We'll advance this into the GFS forecast. We'll let this progress until tomorrow at around noon. And I've lost patience. There's where we expect things to be at 1 p.m. And that's Eastern Time tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you're wondering where we're located, it's the Lehigh Valley. Please take a moment to press like and subscribe. If you're viewing on YouTube once again, we implore you to press the share button, press the notification bell, and share with your friends, foes, science noobs, and science pros. We need your help to grow, as the algorithms hate our channel. Why? Because we hate government overreach. Yes, yes. Here's what's going on in the cloud layer. It's too dark to see the clouds, so we use the Interactive Weather Satellite's shortwave radiation map. Here's what's going on in water vapor. We've got a ribbon of dry air stretching all the way from the Great Salt Lake to Virginia Beach right now. And there's no need to zoom in, but there is a need for bonus features. So make sure you stay tuned for those. We're going to show you the high-res imagery of sunspot 2797, as well as the high-res magnetogram. Let's do it. But first, let's allow me to vanish. So here's the colorized magnetogram. The only sunspot group we see is sunspot 2797, which is a beta-class sunspot. As you can see, it's got at least one opposite polarity trailing umbrae right there shown in blue. And the leading umbra has this light bridge across it, which is always an interesting feature for you, our stargazers. So there's a great view of that. And here it is in magnetogram once again. Intensitygram and magnetogram. And there are quite a few umbrae there around that trailing North Pole polarity portion, which is this one right here. That's a North Pole umbra. That's a South Pole umbra. And we'll show you the close-ups to close things out. Here is an animation of sunspot 2797 in magnetogram. You can see it's been pretty stable here. Not a whole lot of changes to the fields. Hence the term stable. Here it is in 131 angstroms, one of the two wavelengths that takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2. This one N94. So there's 131, a crowd favorite. Here is 335. Showing an interesting roundish feature there in the northern portion of that sunspot. Anyway, it's about time to close this thing out. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, no matter how much the government drives you to drink. And if you do drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Visit our links, support the channel, and may that solar wind be at your back.